It looks like it was Julie, Jenica.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. This is, my name is Carrie Shamit. I teach in Olathe at Indian Trail Middle School. I have kind of taught all over the place at Indian Trail Middle School. I started as a math teacher, then I went into pre-engineering. Along the way, I've picked up reading, sixth grade literacy, and a few others. So I've kind of been all over the place. This year I'm back in math and engineering. So today I'm going to talk about what I use, what are called instant design challenges. So if you guys want to first go around and introduce yourselves, that would be wonderful so I know who I'm working with today.
I can, go ahead.
My name is Deb Martin. I teach first grade at Starside in DeSoto, but I've taught first through fifth.
My name is Jenica Stock. I teach fifth grade in Olathe at Washington Elementary.
I'm Taylor Rabel, and I teach with Carrie at Indian Trail Middle School, but I teach eighth grade language arts.
I'm Amanda Beathy, and I'm from Nest City. I teach high school this year, but elementary next year.
I'm Sherry Crawford. I'm the school librarian at Shawnee Mission North.
I'll introduce Josh Stock. He just put himself in the chat. He is managing the coffee shop right now and in this session, so he's double tasking there. He's sixth grade English language arts at Santa Fe Trail in Olathe.
Okay, well, if the rest of you want to introduce, you're more than welcome to. I will go ahead and get started. So I use what are called instant design challenges. They are short little projects or building activities for kids to do. So when I taught math, it became so tedious day to day doing the exact same thing. And my kids just needed a break sometimes. They just needed to step out of the ordinary, do something fun, even though we did some fun stuff, at least I thought, but you know, it was math class. So I started doing little challenges. And over the years, I've grown quite a bit on what those challenges are. This year has been a different challenge altogether because I am 100% remote. I teach all of my classes on Zoom, even though some of my classes are in the building. I'm not in the classroom with them. So I'm on Zoom, they're on Zoom, but they're all together. It seems very strange. It's been a interesting year. But before last year, we would do these every couple weeks just to kind of step out of what we were doing for the lessons, the activities, we incorporated them, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to kind of go over what some are that I've done. They can work for kindergarten all the way up through high school, and you can change them or adjust them for what you're doing in class. You can connect them with one of your units if you wanted to. You can just say, hey, today we're going to do something completely different. It's very open-ended, very flexible. And one thing I started this year was our school bought GimKit. I don't know if you guys know what that is. My kids love it. It's kind of like Kahoot, but it's more of a strategy, I guess, game is how I would say it. And so I put all of my rules, my classroom rules in GimKit. And in order to get extra supplies for the challenges, they have to win the GimKit rules. So every couple weeks, they're playing a game with my classroom rules, which has been really helpful because it's going back over my classroom expectations. And if they win that challenge, I'll give them maybe 2 extra craft sticks, or 1 extra rubber band, or nothing huge, but it's like, ooh, I won, I get extra supplies. And they don't even realize yet I don't have to explain my rules every week or after a break, because we're playing a fun game with my rules. So that is something I did this year that I hope to continue to use, because it saves 5-10 minutes of classroom rules game, saves me 4 days of going back over them every day, practicing, that kind of thing. So that's one thing that I started this year that I have really seen a benefit for. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen to show you. I made a list of all of the games that I could think of, or my instant design challenges that I could think of. I know there's a lot of other ones, and I'm sure you guys use them. You just may not call them the same. And again, I do these mainly in my engineering classes, but I do use them in my math classes, and I used to do it in my reading classes as well. And I will share this link in the chat as well. So designs are to be completed with few supplies, so you don't have to go out and buy a ton of things. I try to get them done in it may be a 15-minute activity, it may be a 2-day activity, just depending on what you want to do with the kids. A lot of them I get from Pinterest or other sites, and I just make them work for my classes. So here are one I always do at the beginning, is kind of a starter. It's called the tallest tower. And at back to school night or open house, whatever your school or district calls it, when the parents come in to meet all the teachers, I do this one with my parents as well. And so the parents are working on this task while I'm sharing the class. But they have to create a freestanding tower that's the tallest for the class. I mainly use the 10 spaghetti and 10 marshmallows. That's the one the kids like better, but it also works with gumdrops, toothpicks, note cards, a foot of tape. You can even kind of expand it out. So whatever you have kind of lying around the room, it works really well with. But it's a tallest tower. It can't be taped to the ground. It can't be leaning against anything. It has to be freestanding. Another one I do is catapults. I always do this around Halloween. We call it pumpkin chunkin'. And we watch videos on actual like live pumpkin chunkins, which are huge catapults and trebuchets that launch like actual real pumpkins, like hundreds of like 100 yards, but we do it with little marshmallows. So launch a soft object. I did this one with the kids at home this year, and so they just had to find a soft object. Many of them just crumpled up a piece of paper and launched it in their family room or bedroom, wherever they were at home. Craft sticks work, rubber bands. Some didn't have those, so they used a spoon and like a little a pen or pencil, or it can be anything. So catapults are another fun one to use. Slowest marble, they have to make a ramp to get the marble to go the longest distance, but at the slowest pace. So this one, it kind of makes them think differently, because most of the time they think, oh, well, I just want a marble to go super, super fast, but you want it to go slowly. So that's always fun, kind of making them think about it a little differently. I've done this where they put it on a piece of cardboard and it has to just kind of zigzag. So we talk about, well, if you're driving through the mountains, you can't just drive up the mountain and down the mountain. You kind of zigzag back and forth, so that way your car can make it up and down the hill. Rubber band cars, you can use bottle caps, you can use wheels, straws, and you just work on a rubber band, you make it as tight as possible, let go, and then it goes further or goes forward. The 3-cup challenge, this one the kids loved last year. You get 3 plastic cups and you put a piece of note card between each of them. And you put them upside down. And you have to pull out the note card and the cup has to fall onto the other cup. So by the end, they're all stacked together, one inside the other. But some of the kids were great at it, and not the typical great at, sports or that kind of stuff, because they really had to think about, like, you have to pull it out fast enough so that way the cup doesn't move. But if you pull it out too fast, the cup's so light, it goes with the card or the note card. So that's a fun one to do. Paper airplanes. Every year I do paper airplanes, and I'm shocked by how few of the kids actually know how to build a paper airplane, which I guess is good for all you elementary teachers that they don't know how to fly paper airplanes or throw them. But it's fun to show them lots of different designs, that kind of thing. And then we actually fly them in class, depending on where they're seating. Grab bag. This, you just put random items in a bag and tell the kids they have to build something. They can build anything. You can have them build something that goes with your unit. You can have them, maybe you're reading a book and say, build something that this character would need for the story. Or maybe you're talking about a social studies unit, build something that would be used during this time period. Or science, build something that they would need for outer space, or whatever you're studying. Mistakes. This is a kind of a unit I created when I was really trying to do a lot more with SEL. I made this whole unit about how it's okay to make mistakes. They actually research different mistakes that people have made that we use now every day. Like around my classroom, I have maybe 20 different little posters of mistakes people have made. And they research them, they see them all the time. We talk about how mistakes can be good, you can learn from them. But like potato chips, chocolate chip cookies, sticky notes, and I mean, the list is endless, but they're like, oh my gosh, potato chips were a mistake. Chocolate chip cookies were a mistake. And it's like, yeah, can you imagine your life without those? So that's a fun little activity that we do. 3D model of the rules. They have to interpret the rules and actually make a 3D model to show my classroom rules. So they get one rule and then they have to actually make it. So like one of them is raise your hand for permission. So they have to make something that interprets that rule out of paper, tape, glue, whatever. And then they share it with the class, why they made it, what they made, that kind of thing. They really like that because I don't give them the chance to make up the rules. I have my classroom rules being in a lab class where they're always building, especially with like saws and hot glue guns and stuff. But this allows them to interpret them, and it helps visualize the rules. Cargo boat. Out of foil and either pennies or 2-color counters, we make boats and then we put them in the water and we actually test them to see how much they hold. The group cup challenge, I'm sure it has a better name. I just don't know what it's called. The where you have a rubber band and you tie strings to it and you have to work in groups to pick up a cup or pick up an object and move it from place to place. Sail cars, little like toy cars. I have a bunch in my classroom. They have to make the sails. And then we used to use straws and they would have to blow them across the finish line. Now we use a fan, just because of COVID. Let's see. Create something. This one I really like. I give them a bunch of supplies and I say, okay, you have to create something that is yellow. And then they, in their supplies, have to make something that's yellow. Then I say, you have to make something that would be used, like the 7th graders study Kansas. So I say, you have to make something that people in Kansas use, or you have to make something that was created in the 1800s, or you have to make something that holds an object. You have to make something that's useful in your routine to get ready for school. So kind of thinking, it's kind of thinking a little bit differently about it. See it, write it, make it. They work in pairs. They have to, one goes and sees an object and writes down what the details or the steps. The other student has to actually make it. And they always giggle and laugh and are so embarrassed the first time they do it because typically it looks nothing like what it's supposed to. And then as we do this throughout the semester, they get so much better at those writing skills to describe what they're trying to see. Game day, I have lots of board games. We will just sit and play board games or solve riddles. Marble maze, the kids have to make a maze for a marble and then they give it to the other classmates to actually try to see if they can get the marble through the maze. Paper chain, one piece of construction paper, a glue stick, and one pair of scissors. The kids get to make the longest chain. I had one kid make one, it went, I think 30 feet almost, because they cut it into such tiny, tiny things. Let's see, roses. This one I did with my literacy kids. We read Death by Toilet Paper, which is a fantastic book. I read it with 6th graders, and we actually take toilet paper and you make roses. And so then I was like, well, now that they have these roses, what should we do with them? So I had them write little thank you notes to teachers, and they took the rose and with the thank you note and would give it to an actual teacher. And then the floating ball, this one is where you take a straw and you connect a funnel on it, and you have to keep a ping pong ball floating in midair, and then catch it back in the funnel. So questions are the class time. Most of these can be done in one class or less. Some of them do take a little extra. It just kind of depends on your grade level too. But you don't have to make them super complex. Like the catapults, they have to, my kids, like they have to fly 3 feet. So, you know, if you want to spend 3 days, 4 days, you know, make them say they have to go 10 feet or give them more supplies or, but most of them I do in at one class or less time. But it allows the kids to kind of, you know, not have to sit through a typical class. They get to move, they move. It's amazing how many conversations you can have with the kids during these building times. We talk about their lives. Very rarely during these building times, they're talking about the academics. It's, hey, this weekend I did this with my family, or tonight I'm doing this, or I can't believe my brother did this, you know. So it's kind of that time for me to go around and really work on the relationships, because the kids are building and creating. So I can go around and work with each of the kids or each group little by little and build those relationships better.
Hey, Carrie, can I piggyback what you're saying? So
Yes.
something that's super cool about Carrie's classes, she's talking about building those relationships. She'll actually have like our SRO, our student resource officer, come in, and like he'll build stuff and like do it with the kids, or like our vice principal will go in, or other teachers may join in. So it's a great way for her to incorporate other staff members too, that the kids may not necessarily get a chance to build any type of relationship with. So it is a really, really cool class that, and her kids definitely come to my class and they're like, we did da 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 da, and we learned how to blah 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 blah, and I'm like, that's awesome, because I have no idea how to do any of that. So they do, they love Miss Shamit because of these activities. So good job, Miss Shamit.
Thanks. It's really fun at lunch. When I had lunch, they would come in, and the kids that already had the classes or did the projects, they're like, when are you doing this? When are you doing this? And it's like, don't tell them yet. Or I get siblings and they're like, one girl was struggling with her catapult one day, and I go, your sisters both made this. And so she went home and asked, and she came back and she goes, they told me, some great ideas. And then I think she got second place in the catapults. I also, because I'm a tech teacher, I have 3D printers, and I print little trophies. I mean, they're like 2 inches big. And so for each of the competitions or challenges, I print a trophy for them, and they're in clear because that's the colors I'm using right now. And I'm like, it looks like a diamond. It looks like jewels. And they're like, oh my gosh, Mrs. Shamit, like that, it looks like plastic. But I'm like, but look how beautiful it is. And then when they win, they're like, do I get a trophy? Do I get that trophy? Is that my trophy? And they're 6th through 8th grade, or 6th grade through 8th grade. So they're too cool for school, but giving them that little trophy, it's like, oh my gosh. So, I try to make class fun. Anybody do any other projects, or have any of you guys tried these projects with your classes?
I've never used these. Well, I won't say never, but very rarely have used these types of things in my classroom per se. But I'm our district's, one of our Odyssey of the Mind coaches in our district. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but it's basically a creative problem solving like competition nationwide. And there are 2 aspects. You have a long-term problem that they have to solve and build. And then they also have what we call spontaneous competition. And this is exactly what they do in spontaneous. So they go into a room, they're given a problem, certain items that they can use to solve the problem, and a certain amount of time in which to do it. And they have rules and parameters around that. And so actually, if you're looking for more resources, honestly, there are spontaneous websites for like almost every single state in the nation that participates in Odyssey of the Mind, where you can go and just look up spontaneous, and they have everything. They have like the materials you need listed. They have, the time limit, what the directions are, and all of that. It's so much fun. The kids love it. Like that's their favorite part. I never thought about using it in the classroom, honestly, for the most part, unless it tied into what we were learning. But I could totally see this as a really good brain break, or, in between topics or things like that, just to kind of, give them a break, so to speak, and get their minds going in a different way. So this is great. I love it. I know for a fact kids love this stuff. So.
One thing I will add is I always do these the day before break. So like the Friday before spring break, I always have these planned, or the last day before winter break, I always have an activity like this planned, just because the kids' minds are already on break, and I don't want to lose that day. So if I can do these, you're still keeping them engaged, but they're not having to start a new lesson or, really kind of change things up.
I usually am doing matter around when we go to winter break. And so I always make snow on the day before winter break with like conditioner and I think it's baking soda. And so that's a really fun activity, and it goes a little bit with our unit that we're doing.
That sounds awesome. Anybody have any questions about any of them? I know I went through them kind of quickly. I put in the link in the chat. You are more than welcome to use any and all. Most of them, like I said, I find either videos on YouTube or on Pinterest or, you know, kind of, I can't say I created all of them by any means, so.
I really like the idea of how you did the 3D for your rules, because we have an expectations day we usually have to do, well, when we first come to school in August and then again in January. And the January one is just, when I taught 5th grade, they hated it because they know what they're supposed to do. Do they do it? No, but they know what they're supposed to do. But this would be a fun way, even for my 1st graders, to show those rules again. And so we might even do it both in August, and maybe they'll be better at it again in January, but I really like that idea.
Yours might actually be better than some of my middle schoolers' designs too. Okay,
I tend to do all these like the last week of school. I pick a different one every day so that they have something to look forward to coming to school to do. I do, my classroom's theme is race cars, and I teach 2nd grade. So we do toilet paper race cars with the toilet paper holders and lifesavers. And then they try to see who can get it down the hallway faster or further. And then I do the marble maze. I do that one too, just so that they have something every day to look forward to the last week of school.
I really like that idea. That's a good idea. All right, yeah. I know the board games I do throughout the year, and I shared earlier, I used to do them before school, where I'd open up my classroom and any kids would come in and they could play all the board games. Because we used to have 20 minutes where the kids could just walk the halls. And some of the kids that caused a lot of problems for teachers, I would personally invite them to bring a couple friends to play board games. And last year before break, or before the pandemic, I had a whole Jenga tournament going on in my classroom before school. The kids would come in and they'd get out the Jenga games, they'd start their tournament, they knew where they left off from the day before. And so, you know, going to garage sales or, you know, looking on Slick Deals for little board games really kind of helped that a lot. Because even middle schoolers still love to play board games.
So some years, the very last week of school, after we finish reading a novel in our class, I actually have kids design their own board games based on the novel. And then they spend like the last few days of school actually playing each other's board games, like based on this book. And like the first time I did, I was like, I really, really hope this isn't like a huge fail, because I've like, you know, dedicated a few class periods or whatever to it. And I've never had my kids like so engaged. Like they absolutely loved it. And some of them will just take like old board games from their home and kind of like redesign it. Some kids will bring in like poster board, and you know, like they're all about like making and creating their own little mini figures, or like using Monopoly pieces. And I gave them like a list of like how many questions needed to be about characters, or like how many questions needed to be about like figurative language, just so like there's at least a few guidelines. But then otherwise I turned them loose, and it was really fun to see them like latch onto that.
I did a similar thing with math, and actually had the kids at the end of the unit before we assessed create math board games. And I was really pleasantly surprised, with their creativity that, you know, that they had, B, how excited they were about it. And like the last day after everybody had finished, we'd had a day where they just took turns playing each other's board games, and it was fabulous. And just hearing the comments like, oh, I would have never thought to do this, or, you know, that kind of stuff, or this is really hard. Like I thought it would be easy since I, did one on the same topic, but it was fun, and the kids had a lot of ownership with that. And and they were all excited. Can I take this home so I can play it with my family? And yeah, it was good.
Do you guys have any other questions? Or, I know supplies sometimes can be the struggle on these activities, but most of them can be done with just paper, glue, tape, that kind of thing.
So I have a makerspace in my classroom, and I really have purchased very little for it. At the beginning of each school year, I put out a little note for the kids to take home to their parents and ask for donations, and have a ton of suggestions. And it's unbelievable how much stuff people want to get rid of things. And so I really run out of space, honestly. Have to have tubs of things elsewhere, or boxes, but it's great because then I have so much, and the kids will never say, well, I don't have anything to do this with, or, no excuses.
That's a good idea. Also, I go through a lot of our school's cardboard. I know where we keep it before it goes out to the recycle bins. And so like this week, one of my projects was for an activity. The kids had to design a chair, a life-size chair. And they didn't have to sit in it. Like, it wasn't to hold weight. It was just for the height or the size. And so I think 3 different mornings before they wheeled out the cardboards, but after our lunch got all their boxes unpacked, I went and grabbed all the cardboard boxes. And I always get funny looks from our custodian and our lunch ladies, but then, cardboard is super easy to use for all the projects. And then this week they made actual chairs for their assignment. So use what you have around the school. Toilet paper rolls and paper towel rolls. I used to give kids plastic trash bags. If kids would bring in 5 of them, I would give them a Jolly Rancher or a Lifesaver or something. So sometimes kids would bring in a bag full, and it's like, okay, I'm not counting those. Here's a handful. But the kids enjoy helping bring in that kind of stuff, and it doesn't cost any money because otherwise it just goes out in the recycle bins. So.
And your custodians and lunch people are very helpful too. If you say, hey, I need those toilet paper rolls and the paper towel rolls, or I need empty water bottles, they will collect them for you in a heartbeat. It's amazing how eager they are to help out too, because then they're contributing and helping out the kids, and they're fabulous. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Carrie, your chair project makes me think of when I worked at Olathe East High School. They have a pond in front of their school, and I can't remember because I'm not very science minded, but one of the science classes, to like incorporate what they were learning in their science class, the kids actually made cardboard boats. And so like they could use like cardboard, duct tape, and maybe 1 or 2 other types of materials. And so they had to make sure it was like structurally sound, that it would float. But then the kids would actually get in it and like have to like row themselves across the school pond. And they would get extra credit if they could get a teacher to go in the boat with them. And like the whole school would like go outside and like watch to see, like with these boats, like make it across the pond. It was like a huge thing. So yeah, so your ideas are like limitless, really, especially with cardboard.
That sounds awesome. Like, we need to do that in our pools.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even think about the school pool. You could totally do it in the school pool.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So here, do you guys want to see, we have time, do you want to see the chairs? So these are all 7th graders. They had 1 week, and we followed the design process. And so here is what they created. So all of them had to, so they actually were supposed to measure the height. I brought in like 5 or 6 chairs from around the school and they had to measure them and get the right height. Some measured a little bit better than others. But the goal was to make it an actual chair. Now, they don't hold any weight. And we stress that, like, do not sit in this chair. It's just a prototype. It's just to resemble it. But they had a lot of fun with it. Some of them have never been so engaged in a project, and I was impressed.
That's pretty cool. I know our 6th graders at the end of each year, because they end up in science learning about the environment. And so they do a full on, they call it the trashy fashion show, where they actually use recycled materials and trash to create fashion. And they get to choose an adult in the building. So it could be a custodian, it could be a teacher. They've used our principal many times, and they are the models and also the kids. So we usually have several adults who are, modeling the trashy fashion, but also the kids. One year, one of my students was very much into composing music, and he did the whole music for the whole fashion show. And it was just a really, really, it's a fun, cool thing. And they look forward to it at the end of every year.
I have a picture of Josh Stock wearing a newspaper tutu dress that the kids made for him to wear at school too.
That's
They do
awesome.
love that stuff.
I love that idea. Are you going to share the picture? Yeah, I like the idea of bringing in all the staff. That makes it fun. I know our SRO officer loves doing the activities, and he talks it up so much because he is out to win. He wants to be the best. He wants the trophy. And so every day at lunch, he's going around and he like brings his and he like shows it off, and just to get the kids a little bit riled up, but also just to, express it. And the kids love talking to him about it. But yeah. All right, well, that's all I really had. So, thanks for all of your guys' suggestions. They were wonderful. I added the link in, so you are free to use any and all, and I'll make it so you guys can add more if you'd like. Any questions or anything to add?
No, just thanks for your great ideas.
Yeah, of course.